you doing it? You guys are done.
Thank you for coming here. This is the first firm amongst the consulting firms to come for the pre-placement talks. And Mr. Thomas Kuruvilla is here from Arthur E. Little. He's the MD of Arthur E. Little, Southeast Asia and Middle East. He's been with the firm for over 12 years now. So he really knows what ADL is all about. So please join me in welcoming Thomas Kuruvilla.
All of you are awake? Yes. How was the party yesterday? I can recognize some faces. I was there. You couldn't. I was in a costume. You cannot find me there. He was definitely there partying till 2:30. I was there. All of you are awake? How many of you went for the party yesterday? And till what time was it on?
Probably still on.
Good. Good consultant. That's exactly what happens in consulting. You work till 6 in the morning and come for a presentation at 8. If you are ready, you can apply. Otherwise, no point. Doesn't work. Okay, good. I do have a presentation prepared here. I have also participated in many pre-placement talks when I did my MBA, and I used to feel very bored. Okay? So I'm not going to give you a presentation. I want you to ask me what you want to know, and I will cover that. So that at least you don't feel bored and I covered something which you know, or I covered something which you're not interested to hear. So whatever you want to know, I can try to present if I know about the topic. I can send you some clarifications if I am not able to answer it now. But my preference is to, and you ask me what you want to know. It can be about ADL, it can be about consulting, it can be about strategy consulting, or maybe Halloween parties, I don't know. Yeah, and then we will take it forward. If you have no questions, it's over. The presentation is already over. Okay? Are you comfortable with it? Voice is still not there.
Yes.
Still sleeping. Yeah, go ahead. Yes.
The areas of work where ADL operates.
Okay. Are you talking of functions or industries or bit generic?
Industry.
Industries. Okay. Okay.
What is sort of roles you're looking at for students?
Roles. Official or unofficial?
Both.
Both, huh? Okay. Yes.
The work culture at ADL.
Work culture. That you are already experiencing from the Halloween to today. Okay.
So the requirements.
Okay. Yes.
I just wanted to know about the functions that you look at. It's like a round question. Basically practices of like marketing or operations. Which one do you concentrate more?
Okay.
In terms of the geography, we understand a lot of work is focused out of Middle East. Is India a target for penetration for you in South Asia as well?
So if I answer all of this, we are done. Anything else?
Your presence in India and
Yeah, I will cover that in that question. Geography, yeah. What is our plan Middle East versus South Asia, which is India? I will definitely cover that. Yeah.
career progression, how does it happen?
Okay.
Related question would be, at what levels do ISCWs
Okay. That I will factor along with roles and entry level, because it goes, yeah, so that it depends on what level you come in, that determines your role also. What do you want to know today? Yes.
The career path, what is the
You were sleeping, my friend. Somebody asked that question already. Yes. Sure, I will talk. That doesn't mean you should not ask her. I know some of you can sleep after yesterday's party. I also sleep. Awake till 5 and 6, you can sleep, no problem.
Examples of what the ISBLs that have been hired, what they are working with.
Okay. Yes.
The interview process.
Okay. Okay.
Couple of project briefs, so thinking what kind of engagement you are in.
Okay. Yes. Good.
The staffing requirements at for a given engagement, how to staff? Can the employee directly bid for it, or how do you go about it?
How flexible are you with locations? If somebody working in the Middle East doesn't like it, can they move?
Okay.
Policies in terms of flybacks, transfer between offices, compensation structures.
Flyback, transfer, salary. Okay. Yes. Mix of
What is the entire selection process like?
So you're taking it higher than interview process, no?
Depends on the last.
Okay.
As far as the domain is concerned, not really for any consulting firm. Which industry do you think is going forward? The consulting industry it's specific projection of the future.
That will be tough because that depends on the firm. I will try to give you my view, but every area requires consulting. That is my general thinking. It may differ depending on firms wanting to specialize in something. And so I cannot imagine an area that doesn't have consulting. Anyway, I'm trying to answer that. Yes. Because you're asking at the consulting industry, not area. Yes.
Over the career progression, do ADD consultants become generalists or specialists?
Okay. Okay. Yes.
Plans for growth for AD Group. I mean, are you planning to open up new offices over the next couple of years?
Okay.
I don't know if this is getting covered anywhere. Specific challenges operating out of Middle East, because a lot of consulting firms, I understand, do not operate out of Middle East.
A lot of consulting firms don't operate out of.
A couple of consulting firms I know of do not operate.
Give me an example.
Accenture.
Yeah, but they have a lot of projects there. I don't know any consulting firm who doesn't do projects in the Middle East. Whether you have an office or not can depend on many other things, including legal requirements. Yes.
Vacancies.
Okay, how much time do you have for me to go through all of this? It was supposed to be from 10 to 11, but my flight is at 9 in the night. So I am never the bottleneck. because then I can answer it short or elaborate, you see. I just have to time it.
Just take your time.
9 o'clock in the night? That is the time I have. When is your lunch date fixed? 11, 12?
It's flexible.
Okay. Good. Let me try to structure the answers. I will try to answer in groups, and then we can go back to the list of questions and see whether something specific that is not covered, or you want to know more about something. Yeah. And just interrupt me. We don't have to just listen. I still remember some of the placement talks I have participated in, and I used to be very bored and pissed. Why is this guy talking about things which is irrelevant? Yeah. So I don't want you to go back with that feeling. Okay. See, first of all, I am not representing ADL to hire into specific offices. Okay. I am responsible for Middle East and Southeast Asia. We have offices in Dubai. We have an office in Malaysia. We are opening an office in Riyadh, and we are thinking of opening offices in India. And all this will come under my area that I cover in ADL. But we will hire for any offices. So let that be very clear, right? And the way it works in ADL is, once you say I want to go to a specific office, the initial rounds of interviews will happen in the geography where you are physically located. Because normally 70 to 80% of the screening happens in the first 1 or 2 rounds. You see, so the logic is, let us screen, that is statistics, right? 70 to 80% gets screened out in the first round or second round. So let us do that locally, because the final round, it means face-to-face meeting, and means the person has to fly down to an office, which may incur costs. So that happens at the geography where you have made a preference for you to join. Okay. Now, regarding our overall plan, let me, ADL is quite careful and conservative in investments. It is whatever money you spend still goes out of the pocket of partners. So any investments has to make even short-term cash flow contribution at least. So it is not that you can. ADL is not a firm that will invest, that will make money after 10 to 15 years. 1 or 2 years is fine, but if it doesn't make money in the second or third year, then it is a very serious debate happens within ADL whether we should have an office or not. We had a good presence in Southeast Asia. We had a lot of operations here, and then 3 to 4 years back we realized that the Middle East is getting very attractive, and I personally moved my attention from Southeast Asia to the Middle East, and the Middle East office has grown. Now we have around 38, 39 people from just 2 years. We started with 4 to 5 people 2 years back, and now we have around 37 to 38 people. In 1 year's time, we are trying to grow it to around another 15 people more. That is what we have in mind. We have already decided to open a Riyadh office. The thinking is to grow the Riyadh office to 15 to 20 people in, let us say, 2 to 2.5 years. So the ADL Middle East practice is expected to touch around 70 people between Dubai office and Riyadh office. The Southeast Asia, as of now, we have an office in Malaysia. Our parent company is a company called Altran Technology. They are into technology related consulting. They have more than 17,000 consultants. But ADL is a management consulting unit. We don't work together on assignments. It is more like a parent company, shareholder, owner of ADL. And ADL, as of now, Altran already has offices in Bangalore and in Delhi, right? And we have already decided to position ADL representatives within the Bangalore and Delhi offices. That decision has already been made, right? Now, how fast we will grow it, that is something which we are debating, right? There are various reasons for that. In ADL, till now, we have not differentiated compensation and quality of people based on geography. We have not. And many firms who are hiring in India, I don't want to say 100% of them, many of them differentiate on the compensation and on the quality and what role they play in the consulting market, right? Some of them give more importance to research, which means you can pay slightly lower, and that is how they are segregated within the firm, right? It has its own advantages, it has its own disadvantages. In ADL, that we will never do that. That as of now, that is not the plan, right? Which means that you have to pay somebody in India just adjusted for cost of living, not adjusted for the savings potential, right? Which means you should be able to sell almost at international billing rate if you want your consultants to move around, because even though we have offices in various geographies, depending on the location of the project, we pull people from various offices, right? So you cannot have a team member working with another team member and he feels that I'm not taken care properly in ADL. We had that issue, by the way. I was in ADL, had an office in Bombay. I was in ADL Bombay office for around 2 years, and I used to feel very bad about me getting a much lower compensation when my quality and my colleagues' quality from Singapore or from the Europe is the same. So we will not have that, right? We will have same, it will not be exactly the same compensation, it will be adjusted for tax and cost of living, but adjusted for cost of living and adjusted for same saving potentials are always different. You see, when you try to adjust to the same savings potential, the salary goes up. You see what I'm saying? I hope you're understanding what I'm saying, right? So that is the philosophy we will follow, so that somebody will not be encouraged to move to geographies for compensation. We don't want to encourage people to just try for different geographies just because they get a good compensation, and that is not happening in ADL, and it has not happened in ADL. It is always net off, and that's a fact in ADL. People don't move between geographies to get a higher or a lower pay. It is because my family is there, I want to work in that region, I like clients in that region. It is always work-related issues that pushes people to shift geographies. So if we follow this philosophy, then we have to be quite careful on what type of projects we can get, because then we are going to build at almost international rates, and the chances of winning large projects, competing with firms who have a local structure and local compensation scheme will be tough. So our market share, unless we change the philosophy that I explained, we cannot have a lot of large projects in India, which means we have to be quite conservative on hiring. Okay, so that gives you a general picture about how we are looking at various geographies and where people are expected to hire. So the simple answer is we are going to have an India office. It may be very limited hiring just because we are not sure of what business we will be able to capture, right? A majority of the business in ADL as of today is in Europe as a company level wise, right? But the highest growth over the last 2 to 3 years has happened in the Middle East. Yeah. So Middle East is considered as a fastest growing ADL office, but size wise we are below countries like Germany, Japan, Korea. 2 to 3 countries we come in at, but we are a very new office, and ADL has around 30 offices, you see. So within 2 to 3 years from nothing, we have reached, I think, maybe 4th or 5th office size wise in the whole ADL. So that just showing you that how fast it is growing compared to the overall ADL strength. But we are still much smaller than the German office is actually the biggest office we have. Okay. Is there any clarifications you want in this area? Are you fine with this?
Yes.
No. See, the career progression roles entry level, these are very specific to the candidates. See, a consulting firm, the biggest problem normally is to get the right people, right? And we do have vacancies at all levels, right? We have vacancies at analyst level, consultant level, manager level, senior manager level, partner level, right? So when we come to a school, the normal pattern is we have seen majority of the people coming in at a consultant level, some people coming in at an analyst level where you have very limited work experience, and some people coming in at a manager level where you have very extensive work experience, including lot of consulting work experience. So let me quickly explain the profile of the various levels. Analyst is people with almost no experience, fresh out of school. It doesn't matter what is your degree. You are able to collect data, source for data, analyze data, produce outputs, produce very good analysis, and sort of at least attempt to have insights. You cannot have very deep insights because you don't have work experience. So insights will not get really very deep, but some people are able to give some good insights, but that is not really expected. If somebody is able to give very good insights from just doing research without much work experience, he is supposed to be extremely good analyst. But an analyst should be able to come up with very good analysis from collecting data, analyzing data and synthesizing data. Yeah. And start having some synthesis, start having some conclusion. Yeah. Consultants are the people who have normally gone through an MBA program, can look at business from all angles, have little bit of work experience, can at least create recommendations and conclusions to an internal ADL team. Right? So you have a case team, and the documents he gives is already attempting to become a client-ready presentation, but normally it is not expected. It is quite tough. That you should make conclusions and insights in your analysis. It's not only collecting data, you have to make your own views and recommendations based on what data you have collected. When you are expected to do so, because most of you have done MBA degree, have covered all areas of a business, have some little bit of work experience and all of that. Yeah. Managers are people who are able to manage a client and manage a team. Right? A manager is a person who is almost the full-time person on a consulting assignment, who has the highest full-time person on a consulting assignment who has regular contact with the client, and he should be able to make presentations at the senior management on his own. Yeah? So it's not only preparing the conclusions, he should be able to handle discussions at a very senior level. Even the CEO, people reporting to the CEO, a consultant should be able to interact with them on a day-to-day basis, and the client should start feeling comfortable to spend time with that person. You see, the consultants also interact with clients. Even a business analyst interacts with client, but they're expected to interact at a layer below the CEO or 2 layers below the CEO. Yeah. And I will shift into another topic which you have discussed about what differentiates ADL. I think this is one of the most important differentiators for ADL. We work extremely closely with the client. 100% of the client ADL team members are expected to be present on site, and they are expected to interact with the client. And we even insist that the whole team comes and participate when we have a presentation, even to the board or the chairman. We have projects in Saudi Arabia where we have meetings with a prince or a minister, and we bring the team there. We bring a team there, right? So it's not that we don't interact. And that is a very serious difference between ADL and many other consulting firms. Majority of the consulting firms, the interaction is, I'm not saying 100%, but it's almost restricted to the senior level people, and the junior level people tend to interact only internally. They don't get to interact with the client. Yeah, you can say it is good or bad, but in ADL's philosophy it is very good, but it puts a lot of pressure on you. It puts a lot of pressure on you, because you cannot falter in front of the client, because you're always almost 100% of the time exposed to the client. Yeah, you're sitting at the client's presence, at the client's premise, people are talking to you, and what is expected from you is you should even have good communication skills, you should be able to interact, and you should also be able to, and when you're interacting, you need to interact only at your level. The client knows that you're an analyst or a consultant, so he's not expecting you to interact like a manager, but that is what is expected. Yeah. So coming back to the original topic, so the manager manages a team. We have a designation above that which is called senior manager. Sometimes assignments, a normal assignment is a team of 3 to 4 people costing around, let us say, $750,000 to $1 million or $750,000 projects. Right? It's very difficult to approximate, but let me give you some rough figures. And these are projects which a manager will manage. Yeah. There are assignments which runs into team size of 8 to 10 people, $2 to $3 million projects. We start getting a senior manager to run it, because within the overall team structure there may be sub assignments or subgroups, and then you may get a manager to start managing the subgroups. You see, so a manager normally manages a team size of, let us say, 5 to 6 people. When you get to a senior manager, he is already managing 2 to 3 managers, or a team size of 7 to 8 people. Senior manager should also start selling with the client, right? So if a senior manager is managing a project, at least with that client, he is expected to start doing business development. So the manager is a person that the client will trust for delivery. A senior manager is a person that the client will even start for trusting for business development. He will start talking about future assignments, how will you do it, how much will it cost. That discussion normally happens between a senior manager and a client. And partners are people who are supposed to do business development from scratch. Yeah, you don't know the person, you go in front and sit, you meet somebody for the first time, you go and bullshit him and get an assignment. You don't show him anything. In consulting, you have nothing to show. It's like I have a Nokia phone or a Walkman. There's no product to show. You're just talking, and he believes you and he gives you an assignment. Whether he took the right decision or not is a separate issue. That is what partners do. Go and convince somebody that, giving it, if you don't give it to ADL, you made a big mistake. So that is the job of a partner. The approximate movement between levels is 2 to 3 years. Yeah. In ADL, the promotion or movement between designation has nothing to do with the time you have spent in the company. It is purely whether you have met the criteria. When I say 2 to 3 years, it is just the statistics I have. This is what we have seen, the time taken by people to move from one level to another level. But there are people who have moved in a year, and there are rare cases in which people have even gone double promotion, but it is rare. I have a candidate who actually skipped a level in a year. Right? And there are people who even takes 3 to 4 years time. But it is purely based on whether you are meeting the criteria for the next level. Yeah. Compensation scheme, analyst, anywhere between $40,000 to $60,000. Consultants, from that going up to, let us say, 125, 130. I'm giving you the higher numbers. So 60, 65 is the cap for an analyst. 125, 130 will be really the up end for a consultant. When you go to managers, it touches around 165, 170. When you become managers, it touches around 210, and partners it's unlimited. Partners are more linked to the performance. The fixed compensation of a partner and a senior manager is actually the same. You don't get a fixed compensation difference between a partner and a senior manager. But partner's compensation is purely linked to the firm's performance, and there is no cap on it. So yeah, and there are people who get, let us say, 300,000 to 400,000. There are people who are making more than $1 million, $2 million. It's purely based on the performance of the unit that you are managing. Yeah.
We talked about how do the partners sell to the client. So what exactly do you do when you do that?
Sorry?
How do you convince a client to start working with you? How do you do that?
That is very, every situation is very, very different. Yeah. But the point is, again, it's a very tough question, because even within ADL, there are very different philosophies people follow. Some people follow a philosophy of, I'm Arthur D. Little and you have to give me the project. Yeah. Some people convince them by saying that I have competencies and I have 25 years of experience in the airlines industry and I have done a lot of projects and you need to give it to me. I know the industry very well, I am the expert. I believe personally in building the trust with the client. Okay. Yeah, that is my philosophy. I go to a client and I want him to trust me with the problems he's facing. Doesn't matter whether I'm from ADL or from McKinsey, doesn't matter whether I have the expertise, right? Because these things can be overcome. And I have sold many projects which ADL doesn't have the competency. Many projects. He worked with ADL for 2.5 years. So you can tell me whether anything I'm saying is wrong. Till now? So far so good. Yeah? So we have done so many projects which we have no competency, and it is more the client trusting you. But one thing you have to be very, very careful. It is very easy to say that you want the client to trust you, but you cannot act it out. You have to be really, really genuine with the client, which means there are assignments which I walked out by saying that you should not even give this project to ADL. Because you are going to do a due diligence project for 3 to 4 weeks, and I know the outcome is not going to be there. I'm going to tell them in the beginning, please don't give the assignment to ADL. Yeah? And you have to do that. And at the same time, there are some clients who comes to you, at least in the Middle East, 70 to 80% of the projects I have won is based on reference. You see, but that is not the case, let us say, in Singapore. Singapore reference has zero value, absolutely zero value in Singapore. But in the Middle East, that is a major component of somebody giving you a project. And it is again the trust factor. So if I am working with a client, right, and in Middle East they all talk to each other. So, and over a period of time I have built a contact list of people, names like 2 to 3 ministers and 2 to 3 princes and 2 to 3 CEOs and owners of large conglomerates, and I have a list of, let us say, 15 to 20 names, right? And when I go to a client, I normally throw that to them. Yeah, something like this. And it is very rare that somebody doesn't know someone in this list. And nobody will give a bad feedback about ADM. So if a person is new to me, he doesn't even have to trust me. I will give him a list of 15 clients, and in the Middle East, it is very unlikely that you will not know one of them. If you are a large conglomerate, you are a CEO, you are a board member, you have the capacity to spend $1 or $2 million on consulting, that means you are already in a position in your life, which means you will definitely know at least 1 or 2 of them in the list which I am going to give you, and they will call them, and normally you get a good feedback. You see? So that is at the highest level. It is more, because consulting, professional services is, I think, is the most trickiest to sell. Because there is no product that you can, the specifications of the product is very vague. You cannot show a product because the fact of consulting is that every product has to be different. So you cannot even say or show him a product from the past. It can be illustrative. But so it is more, and people may think that you are trusting the firm. Fair enough. I think it is half-half. Half-half you trust the firm, the remaining 50% you are trusting the person whom you are interacting with and the person who is trying to sell you. Yeah. So that is what sells. Yeah. And on top of that, you definitely have to, if you have the experience and expertise and you have the right people, you need to have the right people. Yeah. You need to have the right experts. But for me, these are all given. So it's not that you don't need the expertise. You cannot go and consult in an airlines industry if you don't have a lot of people with airlines experience and if you don't have airlines clients. It's very tough. Sometimes on trust basis you may still win it, but these things are given. You need to have the expertise, you need to have the right people, you need to have the right people available to work on that client during the time. There's a large issue related to pricing, how much they are willing to spend, what is the budget they have, and how much value we can convince them of spending. But when you go on a trust basis discussion and when you go on a reference base, the toughest problem is in pricing, but that you overcome very easily. Because your reference already tells them how much ADM charges, and they will also say that for this amount I feel that they delivered value, so that component is taken out of the discussion. Because he doesn't trust me, trust his friend. The friend, yeah, ADM charged $1 million, approximately $2,500, $3,000 a day. Was it worth it? Yeah, maybe if you get it cheaper, good, but it is worth it. So he will also try his luck, but we will not drop the price and we will still get it. Yeah. Anything else on that? You don't have to stick to the question. Huh? Yes.
Going back to the different levels within ADM and the promotion cycle, do you also have an up or out policy like some of the other consulting clients within ADM?
No. We don't have an up or out policy. The philosophy that ADM follows is, the movement from one level to another level is not time dependent. Now it is the individual's choice whether he still, see, the fact that I'm keeping somebody as a consultant for 5 years and not making him a manager means that I'm comfortable to have him as a consultant, number one, and I'm not yet comfortable to make him a manager. Now, and that is the firm's decision. We go through the process, we have a discussion with the candidate, we give him the feedback, we tell him why we think even after 3 to 4 years you're not capable of being a manager, and we will give him the evidence. He may agree, he may disagree, we will come up with a plan of how to correct those issues and get promoted. But people who have taken more years to get promoted, normally they leave because they start feeling uncomfortable. And we have never ever asked people to leave We ask people to leave only because they are not even performing at the level at which we thought they are performing. Yeah? And it is very rare, it's not even very rare. I can tell you that in my whole consulting career, which is more than like 11 years I have been doing consulting. I don't think we have asked a person to leave after they have spent 1.5 to 2 years in the firm. You see what I'm saying? They leave if they have issues of promotion and all of that. Normally, if somebody doesn't fit with the firm, and we believe that he came in at the wrong level, you normally get to know that in 6 months for sure, and then we normally give it some more time, maybe another 6 months or another 6 months. So within 12 to 18 months is most of the time the ADL decides that you don't fit with ADL. And I don't remember in my entire consulting career me asking somebody to leave after that person has spent 18 months in the firm. No. And all these points I am raising are actually differentiators of ADL, by the way. Yeah, up or out policy. Yeah, I don't think many firms have that policy. The type of people we need, they are exposed to the client from day one. You have to be you should be a very good all-rounder compared to many other firms who gives much more importance at the intellectual level at the lower level. I'm not talking every firm. You have to be extremely good in all aspects, well-rounded as you move up in the organization. But some firms give much more importance to your intellectual capability, and that is fair with that strategy they are following. It's absolutely fine because they are not expecting the person to be exposed to the client, and they are hiring him for his intelligent thinking and analysis and hard work, not for his capabilities to interact with the client. So that's a very perfect, fair decision they are taking, and we are taking our own decision. It all depends on what type of firm you want and what culture you want and what type of people you want. As long as it is all aligned towards the overall firm philosophy, people follow different philosophies. Any questions on that? Okay. Let me go into see, rotating between geographies, it is again purely if somebody wants to rotate, yeah, and if that person is good, it is stupid for the firm not to allow him to rotate. Let me put it that way. I am not going to say that I want to rotate everybody because it creates a lot of problems. Right? If you don't keep rotating consultants between geographies, it really disturbs the way you are working. But I don't have an instance in which somebody came to me and said, I want to rotate. And if that is what keeps the individual happy, definitely encourage it, and people move within India. We have people who have moved from Singapore office to US office. Many people have moved from Europe to the Middle East office recently. Right? Does the European office happy about it? They may not be. If the person is very good, they don't like losing them. I had a very good individual in ADL Singapore office. He wanted to move to the US. I was personally not happy about it, but I did not even express it. Because what is the point expressing it? Because the fundamental point is, if somebody is very good, really good, you want to keep him with you, or you want to at least keep him with the firm. You don't want to lose him to a competitor. You see what I'm saying? So it is not like a conscious decision that goes through ADL that I want to rotate people. Yeah. Somebody wants to rotate, they will rotate. But we do have a program called an ambassador program, which means every year 2 to 3 people are targeted to be rotated. Yeah? But that is very limited number of people. Like last year we had 6 people. So we go through a process and find out the best consultants, for example, the top ranked 6 consultants in ADL. And then we ask them, do you want to go to any other geography? That is a very proactive program we have. Identify the top performers and trying to ask them, do you want to rotate? Do you have an ambition to go and work in other geographies? And they are moved. Yeah.
Do you mean 6 people in ADL worldwide or in a given?
No, worldwide. The movement is much more than that. 10 to 12 people may move in a year. Yeah. But this program is very recent. Not very recent. We had this program till the 1995s. Then we stopped it. Yeah, we were not doing that, and then we restarted it. And when we started with 6 people. The number is expected to be much larger, but we are trying to experiment with that because that has a lot of implications also, because his salary, his compensation, his home base, the taxes he has to pay there, whether he comes to the new location and he likes it, he stays back, he doesn't want to go back. A lot of internal little bit issues starts appearing. So it's better to handle it on a smaller scale and you sort out all the issues. And once you know how it works, then you can expand it to a larger scale. And then what we are trying to do now is, now instead of restricting to 6, we can say, we can do mutual transfer, so it doesn't matter. So the German office gives me 5 people, I can give you 5 people, so then there's no issue. You have to give me your goods 5 people, I will give you my goods 5 people, then there's no issue. As of now, it may not be balanced. Yeah.
So all these are long-term permanent transfer kind of?
2 years.
2 years.
2 years.
So 2-year transfers,
Yeah.
and then you can come.
Correct. But most of them who went for the 2-year program is now wanting to make it permanent. So the home office is feeling a bit awkward. Oh my goodness, maybe I should not give my best people, I should not give the average people, so the other office is unhappy. But the whole purpose is defeated, you see. So you're already looking at, that's already an issue. I'm going to give my best person. Other office will like him for sure. Any questions on that? That corner is away. Go down. The type of projects and engagements we do, I do have a slide. Let me show you. These are the various functional practices that we have, and these are the various industry practices we have. And this list is, I don't think it is very different than compared to many other consulting firms. I don't think so. In the Middle East, we do have a big concentration around telecoms, chemicals, energy, financial services, work with family conglomerates, and public sector. So from the original list which I have presented, in the Middle East we have concentration in these areas. Yeah? Is this a proactive concentration? No. This depends on the type of work the clients want us to do. If somebody wants us to do an automotive project or a consumer goods project or a banking project, we will always entertain it. Because ADL has the global competencies to handle any sector. But this is the pattern of projects that we have got over the last 2 to 3 years, and my view is the pattern will tend to continue because we have more experience in the Middle East, we have more references in the sector, so it will tend to continue in those sectors. But here and there we have project in process optimization, manufacturing, a project in automotive, a project in consumer goods, but these are all one projects each, you see. So, yeah. So there is no sector that we will not cover in any geography because we have the competence somewhere in ADL, and the competence are always global, right? So where if you have a competence globally in any geographical location, they can come to a project location and deliver that. Majority of the projects we have done in the Middle East are strategy projects, either for large listed companies, large conglomerates, public sector, but 60 to 70% of the project are strategy and organization projects, and maybe 20 to 30 are more operations or HR type of projects. Yeah. Again, do we refuse HR project? Do we refuse process redesign projects? No. These are again the profile of the type of projects we get. So 60 to 70 strategy and organization across the various sectors. In the telecom side, we have done a lot of regulatory work also. Like Saudi Arabia, what should be the regulatory framework for telecoms, for example. We are doing a regulatory project on consumer goods, consumer protection. We are doing a regulatory project on protecting competition between players in the market. Yeah? So there are projects which is slightly outside strategy and organization, but still majority of the projects are at the very high level. Strategy, organization, policy, regulation, and things like that. Yeah? Flyback. Yeah, if the duration of the flight is, let us say, less than 2 to 3 hours, people can fly back every week. If it is more than that, it is around every 2 weeks. If it is like 8 to 10 hours, like we are flying to Europe from Malaysia, we tend to keep it around 4 weeks. Yeah, but it is quite flexible because 4 weeks we give them a sort of a business class ticket, right? and sometimes people say, no, I will travel economy every 2 weeks. So it is more like, it is not how frequently you can fly, it is more what budget is allocated for it. So the budget tends to be the same. Once in 4 weeks long trip business class is equivalent to every week a short trip back home. So approximately the budget that gets allocated for flights and flybacks are the same. And so it is a short flight, you can do it every week. If it is a bit more, 3 to 4 hours, you can do it every 2 weeks. If it is 7 to 8 hours, you can do it every month. Yeah, but many people have never done it on a monthly basis. They tend to do it on a 2 to 3 weeks basis. They find out some low cost career, they find out some route. He's an expert in all of that. And he always comes back home or goes to a location where the girlfriend is sitting at home. And you don't even have to go to your home country, you can go wherever you want and they will pay you. Don't look at me. Okay? Generalist versus specialist, that is again purely your choice. Yeah? I don't think in ADL we have a philosophy that you have to become a generalist or a specialist. You can decide on what you want to do, and we will also evaluate whether we have the opportunities. So somebody can say, I want to do only work in the bank. If there is a project in the banking sector, that is where you will definitely get a preference. But if you don't have banking projects and we have a project in automotive and you are sitting idle in the office, that is not allowed. You see? So, whenever I am saying that it is your preference of which geography you want to work, right? We have a proper system in ADL in which everybody has a mentor, right? And the mentors know what are the requirements of the specific consultant. And when we do the staffing, that is discussed between the group of mentors. So whenever we have, let us say, a large project, if we just 1 or 2 people for a short project, we can do the decision very quickly. Let us say we have a large project of 5 to 6 people required to go to a country for 6 months, then the mentors, 3 to 4 mentors get together, and the mentors are supposed to represent the requirements of the people whom they are managing. So those 4 or 5 people will discuss, oh, he likes to go to strategy projects, he likes to do banking, this fellow has a preference to remain in Dubai because his wife and child is there. So all those things we look at and then we decide on the staffing. Yeah. So what I'm saying is, we will always try to accommodate the requirement of the various individuals, but not to the extent of compromising ADL's financial position or things like that. You know, we will not, that is not acceptable. Yeah. And we will consciously try to do that because we want to keep the good people. So if somebody doesn't feel nice to go to Singapore all the time, we will not force him going there all the time, because then he will find another job and go and join a company in Singapore. You see? So these are not like black and white things. It is just we try to take care of that as much as we can, because the reason is we want to keep the person happy and we want to keep the person with ADL. And so that's why we try accommodating what you like and try to staff you on project that keeps you motivated to continue in ADL. As simple as that. Yeah. Mix in UAE. UAE is actually a very good mix compared to, not is the best mix we have across all offices in ADL. It's a new office, so we have people who are coming from Europe. We have started hiring people locally from UAE, from Saudi Arabia, somebody just joined from Egypt, and we have a lot of people from Singapore and India. I don't think there's any office in ADL that has this mix. It's almost 30-30. Indians are majority, around 40, I think 35 to 40% are Indians, and of the remaining we have around 60% maybe Europeans, and in between are people from the local geography. Yeah. We over the last 2 to 3 years, we did a lot of hiring from IIMs, ISB, and FMS. So we hire around 6 to 7 people or 5 to 6 people across these schools, and that size has grown. Yeah. So as of now, we have this hiring happening in India across the 3 IIMs, FMS and ISB, and then we have started targeting people in the Middle East. Like we go to schools in the US and try to find out whether Middle East people are studying in those schools and try to bring them. And we are actively recruiting in Europe. Yeah, so this is how the mix, and we will continue to have the mix that way. Yeah, it is going to be a mix between people from Asia, India, Singapore versus Middle East versus Europe. Yeah. What else why don't you tell me what type of qualities you are looking for? Make a guess. From what I have explained to you, a consulting job. Sorry?
Highly analytical, people-oriented, presentable,
Okay.
and yeah, and eventually, as you grow up, a good salesperson.
Okay.
I think someone who's really hardworking and with some common sense.
Hardworking and common sense. I think all of you are already. See, the good qualities of a consultant is actually very difficult to find out, by the way. So, just to be very blunt and transparent, the interview process and the selection process is our attempt to get the right people. Yeah? If I try to profile a very good consultant, trying to find such a person in the interview process absolutely correct is very, very difficult. Okay, the requirements of consultant is a very contradictory, it's a very conflicting requirement. Yeah, and just you may disagree with what I'm saying. Yeah, the most intelligent people, you want the most intelligent people to join consulting. Everybody says that I want the most intelligent people. Fine. Yeah, but the most intelligent people are the most arrogant people. You like it or you don't like it, you may disagree, that's my view. Does it? But then why, so what is a good consultant? See, every person who has really achieved in life, who is very good, best among his peers, is because he had an arrogance. He had an ambition. He has to feel that he is good. How will you sit across Anil Ambani and tell him things if you don't think you are better than many other people whom you can meet him? So you already have to have a belief in your side, inside yourself, that you're really the best among a group of people. I can do things much better than anybody else. What else is the definition of arrogancy? So if you do a proper definition of a consultant, what type of qualities and what type of thinking that has to happen in his mind, that is the perfect definition of being arrogant. Now a good consultant and a bad consultant, one person shows it, another person doesn't show it. As simple as that. You see what I'm saying? So it is in context. The most intelligent people are the most arrogant people and are the people who find it extremely tough to work as teams. You see the third contradiction. We want intelligent people, but by definition what I have explained, an intelligent person, he is at least internally arrogant. Internally a smart person is internally arrogant. That is, I believe in that. A good and bad person is somebody just keeps it internal, externally looks nice and humble and all of that, which is what he is acting it out, right? Because he has to believe that he is good. How can he go and talk to the chairman of ICICI Bank and tell him what to do if he doesn't believe that I am the best about this topic? And which is the definition of arrogance, right? And normally if somebody is good, he is already arrogant, and then he is very difficult to work as a team. And if somebody has all of this three put together, you are by far the best consultant, by far. The intelligence, analytical skills, communication skills, it's all given. It is there. If you are not there, you would not have been sitting here, you would not even clear the first 2 to 3 rounds of interviews. These three things is extremely difficult to find in an interview, and that is what we try to find out. Now, how we find out, I'm not going to tell you, because then you start behaving that way, right? So we do a case study, we ask you things, we put you under pressure, and see how you react to situations, How do you come across, we prove you wrong. And this is really that happens in a consulting assignment. So you have to really understand what happens in a consulting assignment from day one when you're starting to sell, when you're trying to meet. Let us say you're going to talk to, I was very lucky 2 weeks back, I was with Rahul Bajaj, but we had a very detailed discussion. I have not seen somebody who is very humble but very knowledgeable, but internally I'm sure, because once in a while it comes out, I control water marketing, gold, you can see. The most humble and the nicest people, when you sit, we spent around 4 to 5 hours with him. We went to his office in Pune, we started at around 10 and we sat with him till 2 o'clock. Very humble, very nice person. But once in a while the sparks of arrogancy comes out. You cannot avoid it. Now imagine, let us say you're trying to do a project for Reliance Telecom. When do you think a client gives you a project? When will somebody come to you?
You know better than me.
When you know better than them. Okay. When else?
When he thinks you are the best.
Okay.
When they need a different perspective.
When they need some
Different perspective.
different perspective.
In trouble typically.
Now let me, what all you said is correct. Now put that in the perspective of consulting assignment. The people who are heading such large organizations are smart and intelligent. They have more than 20-25 years of experience. And by my definition, they are. Okay. Now can you imagine a person who is extremely smart? Let us take the case of in Saudi Arabia, we are working with people like the teacher of let us say Angela Gandhi. We have to meet such a person and get an assignment. Look at the discussion that you have to go through to get an assignment from him. With all his ego and arrogancy and knowledge of the telecom sector, he has to come and admit to you that I have an issue. Number one. And he's admitting to a person who definitely has nowhere near the work experience of that person. No way. How many people which consulting firm will have the experience of Anil Ambani to start up a telco? It's bullshit. No way. So that person, what goes through his mind when he gives you a consulting assignment? I have an issue. And this Thomas Kurula just passed out of MBA, has 5 years of experience. I need to tell him that I have an issue. And I need to tell him that you can solve it. Who created the issue? He himself, right? Who can resolve the issue? He himself. And he has to come and tell you that, Thomas, I have a problem with Reliance Telecom. And when you go through the analysis, you have to tell him that you created it, because we have an analysis phase of any company. And the end of it will say you hired the wrong people, you had the wrong strategy, you stupid, you gave the wrong salary scale, and you hired the wrong people, and you invested in the wrong country, you invested in the wrong technology. So my dear Anil Ambani, you're the most stupid person I have seen. What shit have you done? And he has to listen and agree to it, my friend. Because if he doesn't agree to the issues, you cannot even correct it. Because for you to make a recommendation and to ask him to change something, the basis is that he has to agree that he has an issue. He has to agree that he created the issue. And with all his authorities and power in the world, he couldn't resolve it. That is not the ending, that is the starting of an engagement. All these are required for you to just start. Forget about going to the level of recommending to him and telling him that you should be fired, so you're not suitable to run the company and get fired yourself and bring somebody else. Those are all much more serious problems. I had an assignment in Saudi Arabia. I think Kausal was, I'm talking of Darul Riyadh. Okay? Prince owns the company. We went into the company, we had detailed analysis in the beginning. The biggest problem is his son. His son comes at 10 o'clock and leaves at 3 o'clock, doesn't do any work, and he thinks he's the most important person in the world, and he's creating the problem. He's not suitable to be the CEO. He's running a unit. He's the son of the prince, he's also a prince. And you have to sit across him and tell him, so Thomas, what is the problem? The problem is you yourself. You're sitting, you are the problem, my friend. And in Saudi Arabia, if it's some other place, you can at least go to a bar, drink, get him drunk, and tell him you're stupid, he doesn't know what is happening. In Saudi Arabia, there's no bar only. So you have to sit in daylight and look at his face and say, my dear stupid fellow, you want the company to grow, terminate yourself. Sign. Prince, hello, you are terminated from day one. Now you tell me what qualities are required to handle such a situation. And these are real life examples. You have to tell somebody, because, and you can go through a very systematic approach to handle the situation. You ask him, what do you want to achieve? You want to have a good job, or you want to have value for the company? Because both are contradicting, because you're stupid. Because if you, I can prove it to you. I did a survey with all your employees. They say that you come in late, you are lazy, you don't do any work, and people are coming late, and the whole company is in a mess because of you. So if you fire yourself, you bring in a professional manager, then you will create more value. Create more value for whom? For yourself. Right? What is the fundamental requirement from an assignment? Creating shareholder value. And creating shareholder value means that you may have to fire yourself. And he actually did that. He did not fire himself from the top level. We brought him down 2 to 3 layers below the organization. This was 2 to 3 years back. And recently, last month I went back, that individual is the most happy person. He said, Thomas, you did a very good recommendation. His